Hello, beautiful, and welcome to Finding Fertility. I'm your host, Monica Cox from FindingFertility.co, and I created this podcast to help get you to start thinking outside of the box and realize that your infertility might have nothing to do with your lady bits. Rooted in functional medicine and personal experience, Finding Fertility is all about looking at the whole body and finding the root cause of your infertility. Finding Fertility does not diagnose, prescribe, or treat any issues of infertility, but what we do is take a holistic approach and improve your diet and your lifestyle to get you steps closer to creating your dream family. Just by being here with me, listening to this podcast, you're already going down the right path to making your dreams come true. Let's do this together. Happy Friday, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Finding Fertility. I'm your host, Monica Cox, and I'm honored that you are here becoming the conscious mama you were born to be. Today, we have another kind of really difficult in the beginning podcast discovery call. As you'll see, she has tried it all and come up with zero answers so far. And I think sometimes when you feel like you have zero answers, you lose hope, because at least when you have something to move towards, that gives you hope, because there's something that you can quote unquote do, you can look at, you can investigate, all those things, right? So I'm not gonna lie, the first half of this podcast, I've left it. I did think, like, should I just cut this out? But I don't want to, because we do talk about topics that she has investigated, and that might be supportive to you, in the sense of like, wow, I didn't even think about looking there. Thinking about looking there. And I have, just to forewarn you, cut this podcast in two, because we did go over a little bit, because we did find something that could be potentially something that she can start digging into and investigating, and it definitely gave her a little bit of hope. So without further ado, let's get to today's episode. Okay, so here we go. Let me first ask you, what's your fertility journey been like so far?
It's been a lot. It's been a lot. We're going about 6 years now. I've had every test you could think of, done every intervention that's available out there. And doctors don't have an answer. According to them, I'm perfectly healthy. There should be no concerns, no PCOS, there's no endometriosis, there's no history in my family, both my husband and I, and it's just never happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've tried IUI and IVF?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. How many, what's that been? What was that journey like, and how many did you do?
Well, in the course of all of this, I've had 4 chemical pregnancies.
Okay.
So that's 24 hours of
Uh-huh.
thinking that you're pregnant and having joy and then having it ripped away from you.
Yeah.
So that's happened 4 times. Once it happened with my first IUI, and all the rest, they happened naturally.
Okay.
The IVF, everything went really, really extremely well. I responded really well to the injections and the medications. Emotionally, psychologically, it was quite overwhelming.
Okay.
I was just, I really tried my best to stay calm and controlled, but the hormones that you're taking really, really make that difficult. I had wonderful supports in my life, but I mean, you can have all the supports in the world, but sometimes it's just not enough.
Yeah.
And the embryologist told me, because they update you along the way, and they said to me, yeah, the embryos look fantastic. They're growing. I have a really strong feeling that, this is going to work. And then it just didn't take.
Yeah.
And they said my endometrium lining was perfect. They said it couldn't have gone better on their end. And it just didn't work.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just one
I
IVF?
don't ever, what's that? Sorry?
Just one IVF?
one IVF, and that's probably going to be the only one I do, just because financially in Alberta, IVF is not covered. Nothing is covered. It's like zero, and not even like $100, nothing. So, so it was in that money originally IVF wasn't on the table, and then my mother-in-law and really wanted to give me the opportunity to say that I tried everything. So she paid for it. And I mean, that I was really afraid of accepting that money because if it didn't work, I felt like I flushed someone's money down the toilet. But she is a wonderful woman, and she made it very clear that she absolutely did not feel that way. And she primarily wanted me just to be able to say I tried everything. It wasn't to, have a baby. It was to say that I wasn't denied anything.
Mm-hmm.
So future IVF are probably never going to happen unless, I struck the lottery. So I'm thinking about doing perhaps another IUI in the next couple months, because they're much more affordable. Probably like 1% of the cost of an IVF. But we just haven't gone there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay. Yeah. I know it's really difficult in Canada. I get a lot of clients from Canada because the system is tough, expensive,
Yeah.
long wait if you do. Sounds very familiar. I did all my treatment in the United Kingdom, and they call it the postcode lottery, where I literally, if I would have bought a house
Mhm.
30 minutes down the road in Leeds instead of in New York, I would
Mhm.
have been funded for IVF. So we paid for all of
Yeah.
ours as well. Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because in Ontario, your first IVF is covered, and you get 3 IUIs covered. Alberta, zero, like
Yeah.
nothing. Like the only thing that's covered is if you go to a fertility doctor, and consultations and ultrasounds, and all of the testing is covered. But anything to do with the actual treatment is not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy. And
Mhm.
I have mixed views, right? Of
Mhm.
the coverage and not the coverage, but we won't get into that on right now. Okay, so let's step back into why do you think IVF was so emotionally tough for you? What can you articulate why?
Um, I think a big part of it is hormones. I think you're not in control of your emotions for most of it.
Yeah.
But if let's just, eliminate that, because in the end, that kind of says that you're completely irrational. No, you can still make decisions and drive a car and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think that it was overwhelming because I felt like this is my one shot. You know what I mean? And it was like, if so much was riding on this.
Hmm.
Another reason why the IVF was difficult is because I have a friend, two friends who are married, and the husband is the one who we're friends with, and we became very close with his wife over the past number of years. Lovely people, but they have an extremely toxic relationship. On three or more occasions, he's shown up at my house with his car packed, saying he's going to leave. She's called me saying that she's going to leave. Night before their wedding, they were going to call things off, and this is perpetuated on a monthly basis throughout their entire marriage. And, we're here to support them and not to judge, because I wouldn't want someone judging me. So we try to do the best we can, but be honest with them at the same time. And she had her IVF right after mine, and hers has been a success. So
Yeah.
now you have a child going into a broken marriage. And yet everything's going fine. And my husband and I have actually like a very good relationship. Um, we're, to be honest with you, the fact that our relationship has survived and done well through this whole fertility process is something I feel blessed every day about, because it can ruin marriages
Hmm.
severely. Um, and I think it also is reflecting on her, even though I shouldn't compare to other people, it's difficult not to.
Hmm.
And the fact that their relationship is so toxic, and yet they've been given this gift, and just not having answers around that, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that I would probably say that was what made it the worst. was
Mm-hmm.
having their success in my face.
Yeah.
When I heard their success, I congratulated them. And I said that, I was absolutely, happy, that because they were going through some issues as well when it came to the fertility. I mean, Mitch had disclosed to us that they stopped having sex 6 months before the IVF. And it's like, are you kidding me? And then I had said to them that I need to take a break from my interaction with them. It was just too much for me. It had nothing to do with them. It was all on me, but it was something that was some self-care that um, I had to listen to. And that was in October, and I still haven't spoken to them. And I tried messaging her, and I just couldn't do it. And I think that that relationship might be over because I just can't be in that world.
I know this is probably not what you want to hear, but good. Good. I'm glad that relationship is done because it was always going to be a one-way interaction
Yeah.
and it was always going to take from you and it was never going to help your soul thrive or it was not healthy. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
You're totally right. Sometimes though, I feel like have I abandoned my friend for selfish reasons? And yeah,
Okay, let's dive into that then.
okay.
Right? Let's take away the fact that it took um their IVF working and not yours for you to draw the line in the sand because
Yeah.
frankly you should have drawn the line in the sand a long time ago.
True, true. Yep.
So where does that kind of people pleasing put others before you come from? If you know.
Oh God, I'm sure there's many places that it comes from. Because the funny thing is I have another friend who, in the time that I've been struggling with fertility, she's had two kids. But she doesn't trigger me. Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
it's not like, just because someone has a baby, like how dare you? It's not people who are pregnant. It's not people who have children, right? It's very specific situations that trigger me, and she's a amazing human being, and she's been so supportive and understanding about how her children impact me and be very considerate and delicate about it. And she's just going over the top with it, which I really appreciate. She doesn't have to do that. Um, yet you think that she would upset me, but not even close, right? And so it's got to go somewhere deeper than just people who have babies, right?
100%.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, so it's that kind of showing up for people who, continuously show you that they're not even showing up for themselves, because that's
Yeah.
basically what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not drawing that boundary for yourself, like,
Mhm.
okay, this is the fifth time you've done this. This is not what we want in our lives. If you want this, we support you,
Mhm.
but you'll have to do it over there,
Yeah.
not in our home.
Yeah.
Um, do you before trying to conceive, would you call yourself like a people pleaser and like doing more for others and putting others before you? Or was this relationship maybe just like a one-off?
Um, I I want to say yes. At the same time, it's weird. Like I don't I don't care what people think of me. Um, because in general, I feel like anyone who has your best interest would never try to change you or expect anything else. I think what it is that it's the critical part of it. So, for example, one of my fears, I have two like greatest fears in life, and one of them is performance reviews and public speaking. You know what I mean? I don't like the attention being on me because of fear of judgment. A lot of times out of this fertility, sometimes I feel like when I spend time with friends or family, I'm the person who can't have babies. I'm just honest. When I show up, the first thing they see on my face, like I'm wearing a t-shirt or a sign, is my infertility. Like it's like they look at it like it's my identity. Like, is that reality? No, I don't think that that's what they think, right? But I would say more often than not, I even after my IVF, I was afraid to go and see people because of the failure, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because I don't want to be labeled as that, right?
Yeah. 100%. You know, I've lived your life. I absolutely know.
Yeah.
And I can 100% guarantee that people are aware of it, but it's not what they're overthinking about.
Yeah.
You know, and the people who truly love you, their heart breaks for you more than they're judging you,
Yeah.
you know, because they really truly know what kind of pain you're feeling right now.
Mhm.
Um, you have no evidence that you can stay pregnant, but you have evidence that you can get pregnant.
I can conceive.
Okay.
It's just it doesn't the furthest I've gone has been probably 30 hours.
Yep.
Hmm.
Okay. In regards of every test underneath the sun, I'm assuming that you've had a antibodies test, high natural killer cells, and that's come by.
I
Okay.
believe so. I believe so. I would have to look at my blood work, which I'm more than happy to share with you if you'd like to see it. I can send it over as a PDF.
Hmm.
Um, but I would have to have a look just to make sure. But I've had a lot of stuff tested because also like going to a naturopath, I would have blood work done with my naturopath that the fertility clinic doesn't do because
Hmm.
it's just they just don't do it. So I've had extras done as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your normal and common health issues then before fertility?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I don't have. I mean, when I was younger, I had some eczema that I dealt with, and then I changed up some stuff in my diet and did a cleanse, and then it went away.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't have any problems.
Yeah.
I'm I'm really healthy, and I'm quite active as well. You know, Canmore's known as like the active town. Um, yeah, I just don't have any issues. My
Interesting.
menstruation, everything's been bang on, set to a watch. It still is.
Hmm.
Never been overwhelming, never been a problem. My ovulation is set to a watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, my husband's been tested 3 times. Each time his testing improves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, when you sent me your form, you said things have been a little bit overwhelming for you the last few weeks. And obviously, you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about.
Oh no, no,
But
no. It's just the since January, my because I'm just finishing up a degree right now. And keep in mind that sounds like a lot. It's not for me. But this semester just had a little bit more on the plate um than I normally have, just because I'm doing a practicum as well. Nothing that I can't handle. Like everything's actually going really well. I love my practicum. I'm getting fantastic marks. It's not impeding my work whatsoever. I'm still getting my leisure in. It's just I don't have as much downtime to read a book or meditate as I normally do. But that's coming to an end as of April 1st.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, what is your degree in?
Bachelor of social work.
Okay, so you're a social worker?
Will be. Yeah.
Will be. Okay.
Mhm.
What have you been doing before?
Well, I was in human services for a very long time. I have another degree in community rehab and disability studies, and I was working with a lot of mental health with that. And then moving to Canmore, I ended up working for a sporting facility just because it was kind of an in between for me, just to make sure that bills can get paid while still getting back into my human service world. And then I decided that I needed to kind of expand my education a bit more. So that's when I discovered the Bachelor of Social Work here in Canada. I can do it in 24 months online. So I was like, okay, that's perfect. I'll continue working. I'll get this done. And then that's going to be done in July. And I'll probably be looking at employment back into the social work field again.
Okay.
Mhm.
Have you always been like high achieving, doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say that's a hard yes. Yeah.
Okay. I know that your test results probably, say I'm assuming that you've had your cortisol levels and adrenals and all that
Mhm.
checked. Um, my question would be, or like what's coming up for me is this consistent kind of always going and always doing. I mean, even the way that you like you're so amazing at the way you are articulating yourself and like, like coming up to that. I'm questioning, have you ever stopped? Has the fertility journey the last 6 years been this extra thick layer plus some studies? And even though it doesn't feel overwhelming to you, is that because you're just so used to being at like, let's just say like, um, you're supposed to be at a 4, the normal human being, right? Like the way
Mm-hmm.
we're supposed to operate in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you get to a 7, and then sometimes you get to a 3. Are you so used to operating at 8?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think it's because when I'm not doing anything to evolve and improve myself, or to just do better, achieve goals, I think I'm bored.
Mm,
Like I think that it's just like I love like like being in school and doing this degree and being involved in all the research projects and everything. It actually brings me joy. Some students in class are finding it very overwhelming, and
hmm.
and that's completely understandable. It probably should be. But I do thrive in that area. And this degree has only been for 24 months. Prior to that, I've just been working and leisure, some vacations here and there. But it's almost kind of like these past 24 months, I really feel that I've uh just I don't know, like I've had a lot more purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that's in replacement of motherhood?
I can't say for sure. It's
Yeah.
quite anything's a possibility, absolutely anything and everything. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no because I think that there's a lot of stuff that is so subconscious that we bury because we can't conceptualize it.
Yeah.
So it might be somewhere in there for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So my first kind of thing is I would still want you to double confirm that you have in fact had some natural killer tests done.
Should I write
Just
that
for
down?
the Yeah, and some antibody tests done just for the pure fact that in my case, I was a picture of health during my second IVF, and it still didn't work. And I still had high natural killer cells. And my body was now able to produce at times good enough embryos, but it was still attacking the embryos. And I was healthy. Okay. And I don't even feel like at that time I could say that I had gut health issues. There was a little things that like I can now look back at and be like, that was still an issue. That was still kind of a little bit of red flag. Um, and I would be interested in because what happens, like when you brought up the eczema, you did some gut health stuff for it, changed up your diet. Was that enough to shift away from the eczema, but still give you underlying issues that aren't like presenting, right? Because that's what we're looking for. We want issues.
Mhm.
Um, so there can be this hidden issue. So I want you to look back at all your testing and just go, no, I had that tested. It was fine. You can rule that out.
And you said natural killer test and antibody test?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's looking at your antibodies, it's looking at your natural killer cells. These things can just be elevated due to gut health issues, stress issues, things like that.
Hmm.
So, with your ability to get to a chemical pregnancy, embryo, and if you have the proof too with your IVF that you're making healthy embryos, did you get those embryos tested?
No, it was too
No.
expensive.
Yeah. Okay.
I couldn't, there was no money for that. It would have been an additional something like $8,000 and then
Yeah.
just I
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
Yeah. I never had mine tested either. And out of 5 good looking ones, only one became a live birth. So it's I've even heard an IVF doctor speak at a conference saying it's impossible to look at an embryo with your eye and say whether or not it's good. They do the best that they can, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's still a big question mark on quality of embryo because we don't
Yep.
have those facts. Embryo. For me, there's still a question mark on, I think all the other testing that I can come up with my brain is more accessible, like blood clotting issues, things like that. Obviously, you've had all your blood work. Um, Let me write this down. I'm definitely getting like this pull back to being able to like continue to grow, which is great. Like I do think there's people out there with personalities that just are lifelong learners and thrive on that. But I do question what does that do to the body,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
right? Because I mean, everyone's different, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, and people react differently, but so I'm getting pulled back to that, but I'm also, what I wrote down is I'm the person who can't get pregnant. Um, did you show up to your fertility journey thinking that?
I was extremely hopeful. And
Okay.
sometimes I attribute um, my mental health after also to getting my hopes up a little bit too much. I was very heavy on visualizing and talking positive and acting as though that it worked and this was the plan and everything was going to be great. And my husband was also like very much perpetuating and supporting that positivity, and he was doing a great job with it. And then all of a sudden I saw the book because I feel like by now, like when you're 6 years in, you can read your own blood work. You just
Yeah,
develop
oh,
these
totally.
skills.
Yes. Why do you think
And
I'm doing what I'm doing now, right? Yeah.
exactly. um, and and so the blood work came through because we have like an online, system. And I didn't get the call from the doctor yet. The next day is when I got the call. But when I saw it and I saw that the HCG levels were minus like negative, like below 5 points, then I knew when I saw it that it didn't work.
Yeah.
And but part of me still held on that, when they called me, it was like an error or like I didn't read it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just and I felt like I shouldn't have been so positive. You know what I mean? Like
Oh,
I shouldn't have had so much hope. I should have been like, very more cautious, like protected myself more. It was the one time that I said, you know what? I'm not going to just be as cautious as I usually am with these things. And um I'm gonna put it all out there, and that's what happened.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, on that regards, it's gonna hurt just as much. If you would have put
Yes.
up guards and protected yourself, it
Hmm.
would have hurt just as much.
Hmm.
And the fact is, if you're into the energetics and the spiritual part of it, or even if we bring in religion, those things block us. They
Yeah.
do more harm than being overly hopeful. We just in our conscious brains can rationalize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to protect myself. Well, you're actually just building up a bunch of walls and
Hmm.
not really allowing that to come in for you.
Right.
So it's written in the stars already. Um, yeah, you're a tricky case. Usually I'm like, whoo, I can get it.
I know, I am. I've had, you're not the first person to say that.
Okay. So let's go back then. Let's go back to, childhood and growing up and I'm assuming that in school you were a high achiever, straight A's.
I did well in school. School's never the problem. School's the easy part of my life. I always say that.
Okay, what's the hard
Yeah.
part? What was the hard
Um,
part?
That's the hard fertility. My fertility has been the hardest part of my life. I've had to I've gone through a lot, and I've had to like fight and earn everything that I have. Like it used to, my mother doesn't say this anymore, but she used to say, "Oh, you're so lucky to live in Canmore. You're so lucky." I'm like, I'm not lucky. I earned this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe in luck. I believe in, people, should be validated for the hard work and choices that they do to try to better themselves, and um
Okay, let's stop there. So
mhm.
you had to work hard for everything that you got. So
Yes.
meaning your house, your career,
Yes.
finances,
Yes.
husband, and was that your own like initial drive to get out of where you were or
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I grew up during a recession, you know. My parents were my father's passed now, but my mother still is in the pits financially. She had to claim bankruptcy. She took my inheritance and gave it away. Um, I had to I'm not going to say I lived in poverty, because poverty to me is homelessness or being on welfare, but it was not easy. My parents constantly struggled financially. um my father was not an easy guy to get along with. He preferred my sister to me, and my sister will even admit it. It's just, she always says you had a different parent than I did, and it's true. um and he passed away of cancer when I was 23. And that was tough because, I had to help care for a man who didn't treat me the best for my entire existence, that he was my parent. But I stepped up and I helped out, and, I shut my mouth, and then he passed. And I had to keep this to myself because a lot of people at the time didn't understand. But the day he died was the day that I finally felt free, and then I could like push forward and like achieve. And then that's what I did. Like the minute he passed, I stayed around for a year, and then I left Ontario, moved to Alberta by myself with a suitcase. And it was like all of a sudden, like I was just meeting goals, getting the job done, doing better, evolving, doing better. And I was working hard. I was working two jobs. I was, got some more education. I didn't know anyone. I had to get to know people and be social. And I did, and and I know that if he was alive, I wouldn't be here where I am now. He would have probably restricted me.
so
Um,
why would he have that power over you as an adult?
I think parents, they're very godlike to us. I always say like a traumatic time of our lives is the day we figure out that our parents don't know as much as we think they did. The day that we figured out that they were winging it, that they're not as smart as we thought they were, they didn't have all the answers, and they stopped being godlike to you. And that's a bit traumatic. I think everyone experiences that, everyone. Usually it's in your mid 20s, and then it makes you perceive your parents in a different way, and it shifts your perspective of them. The lens changes, and I think it's a growth spurt that we
Mhm.
have, but it's a tough one, and he was very controlling, wanted to be always in control. He wouldn't let me make mistakes to better myself. It was either I was perfect or I made a mistake, right? It wasn't that, but now as an adult, my biggest thing is that you don't grow unless you make a mistake. Mistakes are the most important thing that you could ever experience in your life. Like the successes are just, rewards, but the mistakes are where the growth is. Um, but henceforth, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, performance reviews, public speaking I'm terrified, because it's that idea that of that parent judging you, right? And
Mhm.
pointing at your mistakes and not celebrating your successes.
Mhm.
And I've tried, and I've gone to the point where I'm able to critically reflect, sorry, and identify that and see that. But now it's time for me to break free of that cycle, and I struggle with that.
Mhm.
So sorry, that was a bit long-winded. I apologize.
No, 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 no. That's exactly where you needed to come.
Yeah.
It's whether this is the block of it not getting you pregnant, but there's this definitely energetic mix of um like like this, like it's not failing, but that's what keeps coming up.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And
Failure's the theme right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's
And
funny because my mom, she always says, I don't take much that my mom says with credibility, but she always says to me, she's like, "Oh, Andrea," she goes, "You've always been too hard on yourself." And I said, Mom, babies are not, born with these traits.
no,
When people are really hard on themselves and are not satisfied with their successes, it's because that's how they have been taught to process failure and process mistakes. They've been taught this. And then as an adult, that's how you interpret taking risks and all of that kind of stuff. I says, like, I was taught to process failure in that way by you guys. Now, as an adult, it's my job to break free of that cycle. But thanks to how I was taught to process um my imperfections, that's a it's a significant thing on my plate, you know what I mean, to try to work through. That's probably like the one thing that I just need to break through, and I haven't found anything that's been successful.
okay, my beautiful friend, we are going to stop there. Let me tell you that next week is even better than this week, and we get down and truly find something that she can focus on and dig her kind of heels in. I know us type A women like something to do, but also she's discovered that sometimes the fertility blocks might not have anything to do with your actual fertility. So until then, have a great week and we'll see you next time. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Finding Fertility podcast. If you're loving this podcast, please leave us a rating and review and let us know how this podcast is supporting you to get steps closer to creating your dream family. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you next Friday for another episode of the Finding Fertility podcast.